know where to go. There's so much intelligence built into that thing. It's like, how could it work? Which leads us to Sir Arthur Keith, evolutionist, anatomist. He studies the structure of living things. Anatomy is the study of the structure of living things. Anthropologist, the study of humanity. He says, evolution is unproved and unprovable. We believe it only because the only alternative is special creation. And that is unthinkable. That doesn't sound very objective to me. I was bothered by this word unthinkable, so I had to look it up in the dictionary. What does unthinkable mean? Well, unthinkable, the first definition, inconceivable, unimaginable. I don't think that special creation is inconceivable nor unimaginable. I don't think that's what he was saying, because he's decided not to believe that, because the only alternative is special creation. The second definition, not to be considered, out of the question. Now, my understanding of science is it's the quest for truth by studying the natural world around us, and thus even the universe. So if we can study the material world around us, we can study the universe, the skies, the stars. It's supposed to be the quest for truth, but that to me sounds very restrictive. There shouldn't be anything that's out of the question. Everything should be on the table to the scientist, to the objective scientist. Yet these guys, they don't even want to consider anything. Now, the alternative calls it special creation. In the mid-'80s, it was renamed to intelligent design. If you guys have heard of intelligent design, it's kind of been picking up some momentum in there. Real quick, the basics of intelligent design. In the mid-1980s and then into the 90s, the creationists, they formed this thing called the Discovery Institute, and the Discovery Institute is out in Seattle. They are basically the forefront of the intelligent design movement. Their goal is to see intelligent design to be the prominent theory in science in the next 20 years. Okay, that's their goal. When they started this in the mid-'80s and early 90s, they, again, just like Darwin, they knew that the data that existed didn't support their theory. But it was their hope, just like Darwin's hope, that future discoveries would validate his theory and prove his theory. They did the same thing. Now, I told you 150 years have passed since Darwin's theory was proposed, and the fossil record still has gaps, and our awareness of what goes on inside of a single cell is exponentially more complicated than Darwin's understanding. Okay? 150 years later, in a mere 30 years since intelligent design has come out, we have seen the most amazing advances, because right now we've heard it called the golden age of science. We now have the technology to discover the things about our universe that God recorded for us in the Bible thousands of years ago. It's all in there. And the physicists and the astrophysicists, the biologists, these guys looking at the DNA, they're now able to discover, I'm not going to say confirm, I'm going to say discover what the Bible already confirmed as truth. The Bible tells us that all this stuff is here. The Bible is the only written revelation in terms of a theistic point of view that talks about things that were beyond the scope of human understanding at the time. Every other religious work talks about things and contradicts itself in ways that the Bible doesn't. The Bible stands alone as a work that was obviously inspired beyond human imagination. Okay, these guys didn't have the concept of the universe, having a definite beginning in terms of time. Yet it says that Jesus existed before Abraham was born. You catch that? The Bible is full of that kind of stuff. All right, so let's go back to the Evolution Weekend remark, okay? To demonstrate that religious people from many faiths and locations understand that evolution is sound science and poses no problems for their faith. Now, again, this doesn't sound like sound science to me. Something is unthinkable, it's not on the table, right? It's not to be considered. Here's my problem with it. You heard my son up here. He says there is a God. I'm accused of indoctrinating my son with false teaching, with unscientific and unreasoned teaching, and this is what they're saying. They're accusing me of indoctrination. sorry, I don't buy it. Now let's see how this lie, quote, poses no problems for our faith. Sin entered the world through one man. A seed of pride was planted in the Garden of Eden, and it was watered by lies, and it blossoms into death, eternal separation from the Creator. So the lie, what does the lie look like today? I can decide for myself what is right, what is wrong. I can decide for myself what is true for me. And what's true for me is not necessarily true for you. It's called relativism. Okay? But the whole idea is that pride planted in the Garden of Eden, the worship of self. You know, Adam and Eve both decided that I can decide for myself. So as that progresses, it progresses into this whole selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed kind of mentality. We all want the best for ourselves. Well, it goes even further than that. So now you start thinking, well, can you really know that God exists if you're not reading the Bible? And we're talking about this, I guess, from an unbeliever's point of view. If all you have is the self, if Christ is not the center of your life, if Christ doesn't live inside of you, if that Holy Spirit is not inside of you and directing your thoughts and your actions, then you start to wonder, well, can you really say that God really exists? That's called agnosticism. And now we start looking at the scientists, and they're telling us that, well, we can explain everything naturalistically. You start buying into the lie of evolution, and that's called naturalism. We have a natural explanation for everything. And, of course, that leads to the idea that there is no God, which is atheism. We don't need a God. We came about by random chance. Now we go into relativism. If there's no God, there's no absolute truth. There is absolute truth. Here's where it's going to hurt. 85% of Christian teenagers don't believe in absolute truth. 85% of Christian teens don't believe in absolute truth. Okay? 8 out of 10 Christian teens abandon their faith by the end of their freshman year in college. 8 out of 10 abandon their faith by the end of their freshman year in college. Now that really bugs me. And what do you mean they don't believe in absolute truth? I mean, to me, I'm thinking absolute truth, easy, right? The apple falls to the ground, gravity, you can't get around that. That's absolute truth, right? No, what they're saying is truth is relative. Okay? Truth is relative. Truth depends on your circumstances. Okay? It's okay for me to gossip because it's true. Guilty. It's okay for me to be angry at someone and to not forgive them because I was right and they'll just hurt me again anyway. Guilty. It's okay to not bring your whole tithe into the storehouse, as God says, because I don't like the way my church leadership handles that money. Truth is relative. Truth is determined by our circumstances. You said it this morning, and I'm so glad you said that. He says we have to be 16 years old to go to the homeless shelter, or just look like we're 16. And then he said, no, we're gonna play by the rules. Truth is absolute. So if you're not 16, they say you can't come, and there's a lot of reasons behind that, and honestly, they're very good reasons. So how are we modeling our faith for our children? They're turning their backs on their faith. They're abandoning what we've taught them. We thought that we trained them up in the way that they should go, and it wouldn't depart from them, yet they're turning their backs. They're jumping ship, as Michael Pearl says. They're jumping onto other ships, the world's ships, going the opposite direction. We're sailing toward one way, and the world's sailing the other way, and they're jumping onto somebody else's ship. How are we modeling it for them? And that's something that I'm convicted of now. What's our memory verse, Stephen? Cutting remarks, not making cutting remarks. It's one of the Proverbs. 12:18. There you go. Not making cutting remarks. Yet I'm driving down the road because everybody who's driving faster than me is a maniac, and everybody who's driving slower than me is stupid. And I'm making cutting remarks. See? How am I modeling absolute truth for my son when I'm driving on the road? My impatience, my pride get the better of me. Get out of my way. I'm in a hurry. I've got places to go. This is convicting. as parents. This is why 85% of Christian teens don't believe there's such thing as absolute truth.